So, so one question I've received is, what are these dynamic events and what jobs do they serve? I'm going to make a few remarks on this from the notes I've given you as part of this boot camp, and then we're going to go in and we're going to dive down and we're going to actually see a little example of it, okay? To go through the notes, I'm going to turn to a set of notes I provided to you, which is on events. In general, for the boot camp, I've gone lighter on the notes because they're there for you to look at, but I've preferred to do things in person, walking through exercises. But I would refer you to the notes for a lot of useful information. And there is, in this case, some bit of nice information about dynamic events there. But it really will take an example, I think, to kind of bring it home. Okay, so we'll go through both of those. So I talked in my lectures on notes that AnyLogic on events, that AnyLogic is an event-driven system. It jumps from event to event to event. If events happen more frequently, it goes at a slower level in terms of its time. If they happen less frequently, it can jump forward by large leaps and bounds, time to time to time, and it can proceed in time much faster. And there's many types of implicit and explicit events that we've seen defining. We can define an event object that goes off in some predefined schedule or according to some fixed rate or according to a condition. But we've also defined, we've also handled events in the form of sending a message and handling its receipt, in the form of when there's an entry action. When you enter a state, you do something like set your color to be green. And we've seen events associated with even starting a model up, so or destroying a model. So there's a variety of events here. And the one on which I focused for this particular lecture was this event object, but there's also this dynamic event object. And the naming is confusing and regrettable, but the dynamic events play a very important role in certain needs. And I'd like to talk with you about what those needs are and give an example where they could play a role, okay? So dynamic events contrast with static events. Despite the name, it's not a matter of being dynamic in a modeling sense. Both occur over time, and therefore both are, almost by definition, dynamic in a modeling sense. They apply over time. The difference is that dynamic events are dynamic in a computer science sense, which means that we can schedule them we can figure out the conditions on which to schedule them while the model is running. Now that may seem an odd distinction, but the point is, with static events, we typically schedule them on some fixed schedule or with a fixed rate, a known rate ahead of time, a rate that's known when we first designed the model. A dynamic event, we will schedule at an ad hoc basis, typically, as a model progresses and as needs arise, okay? And we're going to be unpacking these notions over the next few minutes. But basically, dynamic events can have multiple instances, meaning we can have one representation of a dynamic event, but one visual representation, but there can be many sort of instances of it scattered around, just like there's one person class and many instances, many particular people. So it can be with dynamic events. Different dynamic events may go off at different times. Different instances may go off at different times. Static events can be rescheduled. We can reschedule it to occur, enabled and disabled, but it can only have one schedule firing at a time. They occur according to some schedule for that particular event. Whereas dynamic events can occur, you could have 1,000 instances of them going off at all different times. Okay, these are a lot of abstract terms. I'd like to go down to some examples. Okay, so let's talk about dynamic events. Dynamic events, like regular events, are associated with an action that should be invoked when it occurs. So the purpose of a dynamic event is to perform some action at a certain time, at a later time. But it performs that action with certain information available to it that was specified when it was first created. Not, it's information that was known perhaps long ago, and you pack it up with the event. So when the event goes off, you perform the action, and all the necessary information to perform the action is there for you, okay? And we'll talk about examples of these things, okay? And I said, just like a class can have many instances, dynamic events can have multiple instances. Each instance is scheduled for different times. Think about an appointment event. Sarah could have an appointment event. I could have an appointment event. Priesri could have an appointment event to go see Jeff McDonald. And each of us has sort of a separate appointment event with Jeff McDonald that will go off at its own unique times. And we'll see that dynamic events have this added property. You could build information into them so that when that meeting takes place, all the information that's needed is then available, okay? So the instances here, they'll fire off and then they'll disappear. They go off on a one-shot basis. They're like a firecracker. They go off, boom, and they're gone, okay? And we're going to see how we can schedule a dynamic event, but basically, somewhere in your model, something will happen and you'll schedule a dynamic event. Think you're about to leave the clinic, you've secured care for your caries in the clinic, and you are now booked with an event to come back to the clinic at some defined time later. What time later? Well, maybe that will depend on the severity of your conditions. Maybe you had one chipped tooth remediated, and there you have an event scheduled for your next cleaning 6 months from now. Maybe by contrast, you have a filling that had to be made. Maybe they want a cleaning for you for 3 months from now. They're thinking that you really need better care. Maybe by contrast, you have the first part of a root canal done, and you need to be brought back in 3 days' time or something like that to be seen. So you're going to be seen in 3 days' time. And it figures all that out at the time based on the conditions that obtain. Okay, what's the need level of this patient? What's the level of risk behavior? And then it will do a create appointment event with the requisite time in the future and any information that you might need, like who the doctor you'll be seeing is, who the dentist you'll be seeing is, or what have you. Okay. So what's that? Okay. It is. I share your sentiments. Yeah, I share your sentiments. And so that dynamic event will be waiting there so that when 3 months from now comes, or when 3 days from now comes for the person who needs the root canal, or when 6 months from now comes the person with minimal needs, that event will wake them up and say, time to go to the dentist. And they'll come into the dentist. And that information about when to schedule it, and even how many different people are given these events, that's all determined while the model's running, based on people's health state and based on the vagaries of the care process or what have you, okay? So with a dynamic event, we create the event during simulation, but it's going to occur at a later time. We say now, oh, you're leaving the dental clinic. Here's your little card. It's just like the little card they give out. You get those cards that says you're due for a dental cleaning on April 27th or something. So you go and you put it on your fridge or whatever, right? Put it in your book, and then later you present for care at that time. That's like the dynamic event. The dynamic event is you're going to come in for care in 6 months' time. They give you the card now. They've scheduled it. And they've given you all the information you need. You need to come in and talk with Dr. Bhagwa or whatever. Okay. Now, frequently the action we want to prefer in a dynamic event depends on a specific context known at the time it was created. So typically with a dynamic event, we always create it for a later time. And and the exact duration of time when we create it is given relative to us. It says time out here. If it's 6 times months, that's 6 months from now. If it were 3 times month, it would be 3 months from now. If it were 3 times day, it will be 3 days from now. We specify that at the time it's created. We say, create me an appointment event 3 months from now. Boom. Create me a appointment event 3 days from now. Boom. It's created. And it's just waiting to go off then. But often we know information at that point that we want to use 3 months from now to actually perform the event. Not always, but sometimes. Maybe at that time we want to create or delete a certain person or a person with certain characteristics. Or we maybe want this person who's scheduled for event to come in and see a particular dentist or a particular doctor to have something happen. And so we do this, we define what are called parameters. And those who have been attending the Java tutorials will recognize this terminology. It's basically we give it some information that it will need to do its job. Just like when we call agent.move to, we have to specify some information for it to do its job. We have to specify an X location, a Y location. So it is with this. We have to specify certain information. We may want to specify certain information when it's created that will be used when it fires, when it goes off. So we might specify who the doctor is, the dentist is we're going to be seeing, and for what complaint or for what purpose. We created an appointment for dental cleaning with, Dr. Kim, and that's what will happen then. When it fires off, it'll say, "Oh, what do I have to do? Oh, dental cleaning, and I have to go to Dr. Kim." That's what I'll do now. 6 months from now. We don't have to keep that information around in some weird variable somewhere, and someone will recall it. It's all bundled up with the event. So when the event goes off, we have access to all that information automatically. Okay? So what do you do with these dynamic events? Well, the dynamic events, are available over here in the General tab of AnyLogic. It says dynamic event, and you would drag it in, and then you would name it. And you would name it for the kind of generic case. Maybe it's appointment event, or maybe it's scheduled DR birth. And you have a bit of latitude with this. For example, you may have a dental cleaning event, and maybe you have a distinction between that and root canal event, and a distinction from that from a filling event. Maybe those are three different types of events. Or maybe you pass the type of thing it should be as a parameter. You have some flexibility for that, depending on how much common mechanism there is. But basically, you drag this in there, and that represents kind of that class of events, just like person represents personhood, this sort of whole class of people. Okay? And then, to actually schedule an event, we'll actually, say, create one of those guys. Okay? So maybe this is a bit of a contrived example, but it's not a sort of totally whacked out one. So maybe there's a mating between deer, and we want to schedule a birth to occur, 6 months from now when the deer's gestation period is over. And at that time, we want to create a baby that has certain characteristics that are set now, or certain knowledge that's set now. Maybe that knowledge includes the latitude and longitude where the conception occurred, the genotype of it, whether it's female or male. The genotype might, depending on the mother and father, which we know right now, because we've simulated the male and female deer coming together. And we can define the genotype now, and we pack this all up in this event to occur 6 months from now. And 6 months from now, boom, there'll be a fawn born who has these characteristics. Boom, it will all happen. Okay? All of the information it will need to be brought into the world is there, available in the dynamic event. So the dynamic event would allow us to say, schedule a deer birth with this particular latitude, longitude recorded, this particular genotype, this particular infection status due to vertical transmission, this particular sex, and then when it comes time to perform the birth, boom, the fawn will be born. Okay. So maybe you have characteristics of parents at the time of conception, their stress level, or what have you. It creates this at that later time. Okay. So rut occurs at one time when the deer mate, and then much later occurs the actual birth. Now, could you capture this through a state chart? In the MUM, you have a state chart, and it remembers Yeah, you could, but you'd have to remember all this information in it. You'd have to remember, oh, where did the baby get conceived and so on. It's kind of cleaner to bundle it up into this event to happen. So that's one case. You could do it another way as normal in AnyLogic, but you bundle it all up together with the dynamic event. It's clean. The dynamic event, you don't have to litter all the sort of mother's, in each agent. You don't have to have it carry out my potential fawn's sex, my potential fawn's latitude of conception. Instead, it's bundled together with the dynamic event. It's bundled with that thing, so when it fires off, boom, it will go. Here's another place we've used it in our models. Suppose that you have a record over time of how many people need to come into your population through immigration or through births or what have you. So some time series of people to be added to your model. Maybe you have that on a yearly basis. Year 2000, year 1984, it was 321 people. Year 1985, it was 309, etc. Maybe we know the people by certain characteristics, okay? So they're of a certain age group, sex, and ethnicity. And one of the models I provided you has this sort of feature in it. So we know that ahead of time people come in at these times. But the problem is, ladies and gentlemen, that we don't want all that population of 321 people with certain characteristics to appear on January 1st. That would be weird, because we may have all sorts of output statistics over time, the number of people getting diabetes, and it would lead to these kind of weird spikes over time where kind of at the beginning, there's something privileged about the beginning of the year where suddenly all these newcomers arrive. We want to spread them out through the year. So how do we do that? Well, January 1st, we know the numbers that are going to come in for the next year. We know 321 people who are ages 5 through 9, First Nations, males are going to enter our population. But they have to be spread over the next year. Guess what we do? We create 321 instances of a dynamic event. And what does that dynamic event take as parameters? What does it remember to do? Remember so that when it needs to happen, it will do it. It remembers the age, the sex, and the ethnicity of the person to be created. And so then, and you schedule it when? At a random time during the year, say uniformly drawn in the course of the 365 days of the year. So in early spring, in 100 days into the year, perhaps. So maybe you create 321 of these. For each one, you draw a value from a uniform distribution and with a particular age, sex, ethnicity. And you do this for all the different age, sex, ethnicity categories. One, it's 309. One, it's 321. Some age groups only have 120 people coming in. And for each of them, you create all these dynamic events to be scheduled at random times during the year. When one of those fires off, boom, the dynamic event occurs. You have all the information you need, the age, the sex, ethnicity of the person to create. You just create the person right then, add them to the population. Boom, done. Now they've been added to the population all through the year. You've taken that number for the entire year and you've spread it out all through the years using dynamic events by scheduling those events all through the course of the year, scheduling each one drawn from a random distribution. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's a case of a dynamic event that we've used in our models to good effect, and it's really nice because the dynamic event remembers all the information it needs to do its job, and that's really really helpful. So a third thing is, when you leave a clinic, certain chance that a new appointment will be scheduled at different times so will be scheduled at different times and of different types, right? So dynamic event here remembers remembers the type of event to be performed. And, who knows, maybe it's a particular doctor you have to see. When the new appointment is reached, when that dynamic event fires, it knows what the type of appointment is, and it sends the person a message saying, go present for care for a root canal. And the agent says, oh, man, do I have to? And it says, yes. Well, okay, it's not quite that involved. But they get that event, and maybe they ignore it. Maybe they, you could have a branch transition. They might ignore it. They might go in for the event, right, at that time. So here it would send a message to the person. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, do you want to see this? You want to see it in operation? Okay, let's see it in operation. Now, yeah.
Is this only applied to the agencies or also to the discrete event?
You could use it in the discrete event, and I'm going to do that, in fact. I'm going to do it right here. I'm going to do it for the model that I built with you in mind. Okay? Okay, so here's this balking behavior. Here we go. So this is our clinic model. Do you remember this model? We sweated over it quite a bit. Do you remember that? Remember this whole thing? And these healthy people are streaming out. This is like a clinician's. Well, maybe, but they're healing all these people. It's a very evocative picture. Okay, so let's go check out how this would work with a dynamic event. So I wish I could make this more textured because here it would be nice if we had people of different levels of severity determined, so we could actually schedule them for different needs. Maybe here I don't want to, because this is a certain model pristine beauty to it right now. Let me just say elaborated, okay? Maybe there's different needs that occur here. Some need a root canal, some need a cleaning in 6 months. Or some need a root canal 3 days, some need a cleaning in 3 months' time. Let me just go, if I might elaborate this a little bit. Here we go. Boom. There we go. And I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to paste this. Boom. And here we go. Okay. So this is going to be. There we go. There we go. Boom. Okay. So this is going to be determine need, something like that. Okay. Determine if need root canal. Okay. 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 Here we go. I'm going to drag this over to buy us a little space. Boom. Oop. Oop. I want to move all this. Okay. Okay. There we go. Great. So if they have to go one way, they're going to need root canal. Otherwise, they're going to need this thing. Hey, come on. Why won't you? Wire. Okay, here we go. Oops. No problem. The back door, I think, is open as well, but maybe wrong. Oop. 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 Yeah. Yeah, we make them solid in Saskatchewan. Okay. Okay. So here we're going to have these two types of situations. One where there's a need for a shorter term appointment, and one where there's a longer term appointment. So this determine if need root canal, that's going to determine their sort of care progression, both for this particular episode of care and then a subsequent episode of care. So maybe this is perform cleaning. I know it's not just cleaning or root canals, thank goodness. But we could make a multi-way branch, and I don't want to go into it, but perform cleaning and perform step 1 of root canal. Okay? Something like that. Just trying to give the basic ideas. So we have these 2 different care pathways, right? And this is what we're going to do. So these folks are going to go down and we're going to determine the health outcome. Okay. So you can imagine it looks at characteristics of a person and deciding, do they need a root canal or need cleaning, right? Do you see that? I know it sounds horrible, but okay. The main thing I get to here is, ladies and gentlemen, with a dynamic event, as I've been discussing in my slides, and for those who have come in, you'll want to look back at these afterwards. With a dynamic event, what we're doing is we're basically, there's an action to invoke when it occurs, and with a dynamic event, we create the event during the simulation, and it will fire at a later time. And the action that will be performed upon it firing is going to be given all the information it needs when the event is first created. Okay? When it's first created. So we define these parameters for the event that will tell it the information it needs. Okay? So watch this. Watch this. This is going to be kind of interesting. So I'm creating this on the fly, but this is going to be the idea. It's going to be a schedule appointment event. Okay? Schedule appointment event. And this schedule appointment event is going to take certain parameters. It's going to take the person to be scheduled. You folks are lucky to see this just before the discussion just before the discussion regarding the dynamic parameters as well. Wow, it's exciting. Okay, so there's the person on whom the dynamic event should occur, and then there's the there may be some information on the nature of the event. Okay, so perhaps it's event no, I think we'll leave it there. This will be the person in which it occurs. Maybe I'll say the doctor to see or something like that. Doctor name, something like that. Okay, string. Okay, so this might be the sort of information that's going to be bundled up with this event. And when it fires, note we're here in the action. When it fires, what are we going to do? When this event goes off, when it's actually firing off, we're going to schedule it. Probably I should be careful. It should be called appointment event, because when it fires, it's time for the appointment. So here's the appointment. We're going to schedule it ahead of time, and then it's going to fire off, and at the time it fires off, we'll have access to all this information. So what we're going to do here is we're going to send this send the person a certain message. So maybe we're going to send them an appointment event that tells them the doctor, or send them a message that tells them the doctor name to see. Okay, so it'll say go see doctor name, something like that, and we're going to send it to person P. So here we're seeing, we're going to be telling this person to go see a certain doctor, something along those lines. Does that make sense?
And then maybe you could add like the type of appointment.
You could add the type of appointment. We could do that. We could also create a separate type of dynamic event, one for a cleaning, one for a root canal. So maybe we'll illustrate this. Watch this. So this would be a phase 2 root canal appointment. Okay, root canal appointment, and then maybe there'll be a cleaning appointment. Okay, where someone presents for care for a cleaning. So this would be a cleaning appointment, something like that. Does that make sense? So of a cleaning appointment. And in a phase 2 root canal, maybe it would say, go have a phase 2 root canal with doctor such and such. And this one would say, go have a cleaning appointment with doctor such and such. Okay? So we could do it that way.
So how do you?
Yeah.
So what decides which event gets fired?
We're going to decide, and I'll show you in a second. Okay. I actually don't like this, how I'm doing this much, so forgive me. I'm just going to elaborate on this slightly. I'm actually going to create an option. I'll keep it this way, but I'll just make it simpler so it's familiar mechanisms that you've seen before. So forgive me, I'm doing this off the top of my head. So I would say I'm just going to send cleaning appointment. We can discuss how to bundle it up with the doctor name in a few minutes. And then I'm going to say phase 2 root canal as the separate message, okay? We can bundle it up with the doctor name, but that will take a little bit more mechanism. I just want to keep it simple for now. So here we're going to have a cleaning appointment event, and for now I'm going to omit the doctor name, and similarly phase 2 cleaning event, I'm going to omit the doctor name. Forgive me. Okay, just to keep this simple, what we will now do is the following. So we're a lot of the way done, but we've got to hitch in 2 key mechanisms. The first is, when is this going to be scheduled? It's going to be scheduled when they're done with phase 1 of the root canal. When we exit, so on exit, here, on exit, we're going to schedule this. So we're going to say this dot create, this is the key thing, create, if they've got a phase 1 root canal, we're going to say this dot create phase 2 root canal. Who are we going to perform it? We're going to perform it on the entity, the person who's flowing through here. And for how long will it be? It'll be 3 times day. It'll be 3 days from now. Let me show the other one. We'll come back and explain this. This is for perform. I thought it was in perform phase 2 of the root canal there. These 2 are too close together. Let me just drag them apart so I can get them. I'm in this sort of. Okay, that's a little bit better. Let me. Oh gosh, it's still. Okay, there we are. What's going on? Oh, I see. The names are backwards. Okay, there we go. Okay.
So the bottom one is the root canal.
It's the root canal. Yeah. I'll fix the capital A. There we go. Okay. Step 1 of root canal. On exit here, it's going to schedule a phase 2 root canal appointment. For the perform cleaning, what's it going to do on exit? It's going to schedule what? The cleaning appointment, right? Cleaning appointment event, right? So create cleaning appointment event. And it also needs to take a amount of time, how soon that will be. I'm going to say it's going to be 0.5 times year. And on who is that cleaning appointment event going to occur? It's going to occur on the certain entity, on the current entity. Here we have a situation now where, okay, it's an unhappy camper. Forgive me for a second here while I finish this, fix this up. Okay, is not applicable for double and, come on, and oh, fine, yeah. Okay, I should have done it more carefully. So what we want to do is we want to schedule this person to be treated as a person. So the reason I'm having to do this is because I just said entity type is agent. I should have said entity type is person. All it knows is it's some agent, so I have to tell it, hey, it's actually a person, okay? It's actually a person here. When I do create this and create this as well.
Would it work if you just put person on top of the delay loop? Defining that here?
Up here. Yeah, you just put it, no, you'd have to put it all the way through, I think.
I thought it was new AnyLogic, you could just define it to one place.
Just that one place?
Just that one place.
Oh, okay, that would be great. Nifty. So I could say person here. Yeah, okay, that would be great if it does that for you automatically. Let's give it a try. Boom.
So you said entity type is person?
Yeah, the entity flowing through here, it looks like Dale is correct. The entity flowing here is a person. In other words, it's a person that's presenting for care here, presenting for care in this system, and therefore the entity is always a person here. And therefore, we can actually say the entity type is person for these two delays here. And then it will actually know it's a person, so when it comes time to create this event, it will recognize that correctly. So big picture, what's happened? We've defined two types of events. These are called dynamic events. They're scheduled at one time, they go off at another time. The type of the dynamic events basically dictates how it will be handled. So here, this takes in a person, and when it fires, at some point it's going to take in a person. When you first create it, it's going to get the information about the person, and then when it fires, it will send that person a message which provides them with information they need to do the job. In this case, we're telling them they have a cleaning appointment, okay? Similarly, this phase 2 root canal appointment, at the time it fires, we'll send them a message saying you have a phase 2 root canal to be scheduled. By virtue of doing that, what's going to happen is when they're actually in the current appointment, it's going to schedule the next appointment for them based on the type of work being performed. If they just need a cleaning appointment, it will schedule it for half a year from now, and it will call this create cleaning appointment event. That's going to be sending them a message half a year from now saying go in for care. This more fearsome event here, when we go through phase 1 of a root canal, it's going to send them this scary message that says in 3 days' time, they're going to be called in for a root canal phase 2. And, of course, the missing component, there's two small missing components. Right now, in general, you depend on the person's characteristic to figure out which way they go here, whether they are going to have a root canal or cleaning. In this case, I'm going to assume that 95% of the time it just performs a cleaning, okay? Which is thank goodness. And so that's phase sort of 1. We're going to divide people into this into these categories. Second of all, ladies and gentlemen, we need to go to the person here, go to person, and we actually need it so that they present for care when they receive a message like that, okay? So we're going to have them move to this this event for a certain type of appointment. So we would go add a transition for each of these types of messages saying like, go in for your appointment, okay? So here it would be a message transition here when they receive a certain message, okay? When they receive a certain message, so forgot what the message was. Was it go for root canal appointment? Was that what it was? But whatever that exact message is, we need to make the message that's handled by them. So if we sent the message saying cleaning appointment, then we need to have them handling the cleaning appointment message here, okay? So here, they're going to be transitioning in for a cleaning appointment. There, they're going in for a cleaning appointment. And they would be on the way to care, and then they would present for care, presumably for a cleaning appointment. I'm not going to show that. The dynamic event is going to be responsible for sending them this message. That's what's going to be happening here. By contrast, there's going to need to be another handler here, which is a handler for a root canal event, root canal phase 2, which is going to be dictated by, it's dictated by the message sent here, phase 2 root canal. Phase 2 root canal event, that's going to be handled also by the person, and then they'll present for care for a phase 2 root canal. Maybe we'll make it probabilistic, so sometimes they don't come in for that type of appointment. Sometimes they say, it was so painful, I'm not going to go back. Okay, so here we go. For a phase 2 root canal, maybe with 50% probability they'll present, and 50% probability they won't. There we go. Boom. Okay. So with 50% probability, they're going to present for care. So phase 2 root canal appointment time. And with 50% probability, they'll go back to this not seeking care state, and the condition will worsen. And 50% probability they'll continue on for this. So under condition of random true, 50%. 50%. They'll continue on. So present for phase 2 root canal appointment. Okay? And this message will be based on a root canal. This one was cleaning, right? This one is cleaning. So here, so what is this one called? You want to be consistent. Let's call this time for phase 2 root canal, and this will be called time for cleaning appointment. Time for cleaning appointment. Okay. There we go. Good. So I'm just going to show this name, time for phase 2, this. So the idea here is that that we've scheduled these things ahead of time, 6 months ahead of time, and 6 months from now, 6 months hence, this actual appointment will take place. This appointment they'll be summoned for the appointment 6 months from now. So at the time earlier, we knew who was going to be scheduled at the clinic. We knew who needed to be scheduled here. Okay, we knew who needed to be scheduled, and we knew when they needed to be scheduled. And so while that person is flowing through this process, we're going to schedule them. We're going to be. It's actually right here. We're going to be scheduling them 6 months from now to send that person a message. Does that make sense?
What setting are we going to schedule?
So while they're flowing through care, we're going to schedule them for an appointment 6 months from now. So 6 months from now, a cleaning appointment event will be fired. 6 months from now, that event will happen. What will happen at the time of that event? What will happen is, at the time of that event, it will send them a message saying there's a cleaning appointment. Who will it send a message? It will send this entity a message. This particular entity, the person who's flowing through here, 6 months from now, will be sent this message because this entity is being passed to this cleaning appointment event as the person to whom to send the message. So 6 months from now, it's going to send that person. When this fires 6 months from now, this event will be created right now, but 6 months from now, it will go off and fire and send that person an event. Send that person a message saying, get in for your cleaning appointment. By contrast, if we're in a root canal, phase 1, it's going to create an event to go off for 3 days from now. And at the time that event goes off, we're going to send that person a message saying, you now have a phase 2 root canal appointment. Please come in for it. And they can either ignore that message or not. They can either pay attention to that message or not, as we saw in our little model. So here we're creating the event at the time they're flowing through this care process, at the time of the phase 1 root canal, but we're scheduling an event to occur 3 days from now, dynamically, we call it. We're scheduling it on the fly. We decide, we want to schedule an event. We want to schedule an event 3 days from now. And when that event goes off, that person will be sent a message. And by virtue of sending that person a message, that person will be departing for care. They'll be departing for care to be treated.
I missed a more minor point.
Yeah.
On the 50% probability.
Yeah. I just added with 50% probability they actually listen to the message and present for care, but 50% they just say, I'm punting on this root canal business. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to keep it with a temporary filling, which is bad news.
Yeah, I understood the logic. I just
didn't
get the syntax on that. Okay.
Yeah. So it's the default is to stay untreated. The condition is 50% probability they continue on. In this case, it's kind of arbitrary.
I see on the dynamic parameter, but you were saying one might also have use an option list.
Yeah, you can. So option lists in general are better ways of doing messages because messages can be mistyped.
Okay.
You can very easily mistype a message. Whereas if you define an option list, I will commonly define an option list to be the set of all messages for this model.
For each type of appointment that they
Yes, right.
follow up.
Here, let's do that. Let's show this. This is another nugget. Okay, I'm going to add to this thing agent messages, and there's going to be one message called root canal phase 2 appointment, and there's another appointment, and there's another message that's going to be a dental cleaning appointment. And in general, there could be other messages, right? You're infected or whatever, right? I don't know that we have others. Oh, we do. We have this. This departed healthcare facility message. So we'll make one for that. Yeah.
So then, in your second column, though, could you put like the interval within which, in the second column there, right? You could put a value associated with it.
Okay, I don't have that here.
Oh.
I think it looks like that for because it uses the same interface as it does for the dimensions. So I don't think you can actually put anything into that column.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if there's a.
But when you're making it, it appears like there's an extra column there, but it's not actually.
Yeah, you can't click in it. You can't go into it. So
you would have another list that would be sort of like a 30-minute appointment.
Nope.
And a 10-minute
No,
appointment.
that's not something that'd be.
These are appointment messages. You could have another one for appointment type.
Yeah, although I wouldn't do it with an option. Well, yeah, you could do it with an option list, yeah, if you wanted to, but if you want to systematically associate appointment type with duration or the frequency with which it's scheduled, I wouldn't do that with just an option list. I would do it with a hash map or something like that, which would map a given appointment type into a value. And that's a little bit of a separate issue, but there's ways of basically turning one of these into a number that you could specify, oh, for this type of appointment, I want it to be scheduled this amount of time from now. And you could capture that if you wanted to. Okay, so here, now the messages would not be sending, we don't have to worry that we're spelling everything succinctly. We would just type agent messages dot departed healthcare facility. We don't have to worry about typing it ourselves and mistyping it, and one place we type it one way, one place we type it another. Instead, we just use it consistently throughout the model. We just refer to the appropriate message. So here, I'd refer to the cleaning appointment. Oop, hey, come on. Oh, don't give me that. Okay, dental cleaning appointment, and this one will be oh, that one's for phase 2 root canal. Phase 2 root canal. Oh, come on. Agent messages dot root canal phase 2 appointment. Okay, so this eliminates kind of remembering how we spelled it and all that sort of stuff. And then when we sent the message, we're going to have to do the similar thing, because when we sent the message, we sent these things here like departed healthcare facility, so we have to match those up. So we have to have this option list, departed healthcare facility has to be sent here. And similarly, when we send a message from, when we send a message to these guys, we're going to have to remember to send the option list message. So this makes it, as far as I'm concerned.
You don't need to worry about quotes or anything, really.
No.
Okay.
No, it's beautiful, and it auto completes it.
Yeah.
So, and if you misspell it, it will tell you, I don't understand what you mean, and that allows you to avoid problems. And it allows you to avoid inconsistencies. Okay, so that's using options list for message types. It's a best practice. I would strongly recommend you use it rather than typing them in strings. Strings is for the birds. It's easy to forget. It's easy to misspell. It's easy to use capitals one way and one of them the wrong way and the other, and you might not realize you did that, and your model's giving nonsense as results. So be careful about that. Use option lists instead. Any questions about that? Okay. So any questions about dynamic events? I know I just want to go back to the big picture here, because some of you especially came in during it. The big picture with option lists is that, big picture with dynamic events is that a dynamic event, in contrast to a static event, can have many, many instances going on at a time. It can be scheduled on a schedule that's purely dictated while the model's running. More than that, when you schedule a dynamic event, you can pack up information with it. In this case, the person to whom, who should be presenting for care, such that when it fires, it can do its job. Here, we had a particularly simple case of that because I didn't want to spend a lot of time. We specified person here so that when this event goes off, this event will fire and send a message to a person. And what we did here is we scheduled, as this flow was going, we said we want to create an event for this person based on the fact that they're undergoing cleaning now. We want to create a cleaning event for them in 5 years' time. Based on the fact they're undergoing a phase 1 root canal, we want to create a phase 2 root canal event for them in 3 days. We can't easily capture that through a state chart. We can't, so we would have to build a state chart that represents, the type of care being conferred. It would be a big mess. We could do it, but it would be awkward. Instead, here, at the time of the care, we schedule an event for some later period of time. This thing gets created. The so-called event gets created. The event instance, object gets created. And it knows all the information it needs to do its job. In this case, it's just the name of the person. It's just the person to whom it will be sent. So, in the fullness of time, after 3 days for the step of a phase 1 root canal, or after 6 months for dental cleaning, the appropriate event will fire. And what will that event do? that event will use the information it's been given and send a message to the person. And by sending a message to the person at that time, 6 months hence or what have you, that person will leave for care. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like we separate the knowledge that we will have an event 6 months from now from the time at which it has to happen. So we get an event ready, all ready to do its job, so in 6 months' time, boom, it does its job. It sends an event to the person. It's kind of like being able to say, hey, send an event to this, in this particular case, it's like saying, send an event to this person 6 months in the future. It gets it all ready, gets it all lined up, gets it ready to go, but you're saying defer this for this amount of time. Does that make sense? That's dynamic events. Okay? Okay. Now I would really like to show, there's a bunch of other people who came in and left, and you should really see this. What I'm about to show you is, I think, one of the most powerful features of AnyLogic. That's a strong statement, but I think it's true. I think it's powerful in the sense that it makes a very powerful mechanism available easily. And that mechanism, ladies and gentlemen, is dynamic parameters and action parameters. So let's turn to that. Okay.